Okay, so I believe it's
Yeah,
recording.
you're good. You have the red button.
So to start the conversation, could you just elaborate what you were saying before we
Yeah, so it's what I was saying was it's so interesting in reading the proposal for an LGBTQ community center in Bergen County. I've lived in Bergen County for 15 years and never really thought about an LGBT community center, but in reading it, it would be such a valuable resource to our community. And I've seen a huge shift within the LGBTQ population in this county, especially since last March when the pandemic started. There are so many more, just in Teaneck alone, which is the town where I live, um, many more LGBTQ families, especially families that are raising children in this county, as well as singles that are moving here or relocating here from other parts of the country. But I think primarily a lot of people that are leaving New York City, seeking kind of greener pastures. And, it just in kind of reading about it, you never really think about the importance of it because as far as like LGBTQ life for me, it's always been centered in New York City. So being so close to the city, you just figure, okay, well, you cross the bridge and you go here. But the reality is there should be a lot more resources available to our community here, and there is virtually nothing. So I think that it would be invaluable for the amount of services that an LGBTQ center could bring and improve quality of life and health issues and so many other things that we could take advantage of.
So from what I'm hearing, just in practical reasons, coming to a county to relocate, having an LGBT center just to help people get information and sort out their new lives here. In
Mhm.
that sense alone, it would be practical.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, the more I think about it, and I'm sure the more we have this discussion, more and more will unfold. But I remember, I moved to Teaneck 15 years ago. One of my neighbors in this town was Stephen Goldstein, who at the time headed up Garden State Equality. And I was very unsure about leaving the city and moving to the suburbs as a gay couple and how that would be perceived, not knowing that much about northern New Jersey and not knowing much about the different towns, because the towns are quite different depending on where you live in Bergen County as far as diversity and inclusion aspects are concerned. And I remember reaching out and calling Stephen Goldstein because I knew he was gay and lived in Teaneck to ask him, what's it like to be a gay couple in Teaneck? And, is it a community where I would feel comfortable and accepted and et cetera, et cetera. And that was kind of my go-to. There weren't, and then in moving there, I mean, we ultimately bought our home here. Um, not really having any resources available to kind of find out about the LGBT community in the county and safe spaces and networking opportunities, cultural opportunities. I mean, there's so much that I think a community center could provide to residents and LGBTQ allies and families.
And sorry to backtrack a little bit. Would you mind introducing yourself and giving a little
Yes,
background on who you are? Because it would be
sure. My name is Jeremy Lentz. I'm a Bergen County resident based in Teaneck. I run a nonprofit in the county called the Teaneck International Film Festival. It's a project of the Puffin Foundation, and we're entering our 16th year.
awesome. Thank you. And it's kind of interesting because you mentioned a few things that I like to pick up is you're saying going to the city, and I really resonate with that because everything was to the city. You
Right.
left here to go to the city, and working here in the field with people at Buddies and how we are working with people that with their needs and stuff. A lot of the times I hear over and over and over again for more of the more disadvantaged people, is go to the city, become homeless there, live there for a year or what, sleeping on couches and stuff, because at some point they'll pick you up and you'll have services. You'll have actual services. And so just the thought of having services means people are leaving our county to go there to make themselves homeless for a
Right,
period of time just to get some kind of services and community.
right.
You know, it's a real thing, you
Yeah.
know. And then secondly, how you reached out to your friend. And that's something I think I would like to highlight also, is that how we rely on our own to get by. You know,
Hmm.
we have to go out and ask each other how to, is this a place to go? And, where do you know where to go and whatnot, right?
Yeah, so much is word of mouth. And just to clarify, at that time, Stephen Goldstein wasn't a friend. He was just, out there in the media doing what he was doing with, advocating for LGBTQ rights in the States. So, you did a Google search, Teaneck and Gay, and he was the first thing that popped up with a phone number and an email. So it was just, oh, I'm moving to this town. Let me make sure, making the right investment in where I'm moving.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that question all the time myself from people that are coming from the city. I actually have a friend who's asking the very same question. And so, but the problem with this, where it breaks down, is there are other parts of the LGBT community that is still very much not out there. Is not There's not a visible community here. So, the transgender community, where it's
Hmm.
literally not safe for them to disclose, just on that level alone. So moving to a place like this or growing up in a place like this is very daunting to them. So
Hmm.
this is one of the reasons why, it's just a simple thing as having a safe space and having resources is really important. And this is why I wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, it's critical. And the more I think about it, yeah, I mean, I know families in Teaneck that, they're straight families with trans children, that have been in school systems that have had to overcome major obstacles, with also within religious communities here, how they're perceived. And it's really, like you say, daunting, and not feeling like there's enough as far as support and resources is another thing. And just, Anthony, I mean, what went on just 2 years ago with trying to get a rainbow flag raised in our town, and many towns throughout this county, where you know it really, it was an obstacle, and it wasn't something that came easy. We had to fight for it, and we had to fight hard. So I feel like a community center would also, I think, provide members of the LGBTQ community with additional resources to, network and strengthen numbers, and, just organizing. There's so many levels, and there's so many cross sections, and, LGBTQ is such a huge umbrella, right?
Yeah.
I mean, issues that pertain to gay men aren't necessarily the same that pertain to lesbians or trans children, or, you know, all the different letters, within our umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really important. And it's another important thing is there are people doing good work in our county, but there's no advertisement for that. There's no
Mhm.
one saying, "Hey, go here," So it's difficult to get
Right,
connected to those services on that
right.
level.
And services too, because, I have friends that moved here recently that are raising a kid, and, being that I've lived here so long, they always like reach out to me with local questions and looking for a pediatrician in the county that's, LGBT friendly. Do you know of anyone? And, I don't. But I think having some kind of network where you could find, if you want a gay doctor, you could find a list of where to go. And those are things that I think are very important. And I know, even now, I mean, it's just like there are these Facebook groups, the neighborhood groups for Bergen County that people post stuff if they're looking for specific issues pertaining to, queer issues, and go on there and message board. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's also a little bit more complex because we have people who will quickly get a grant, and they'll so I'm going to help the LGBT community, and they put a flag, and to their minds that's helping the community. I'll allow you to come here and get services, and I won't harass you, is to the extent of their thinking.
right,
But having therapists or doctors that understand what it means to be LGBT, and going to a therapist and talking about you know being in a relationship, and if the therapist is not receptive to you talking about sex or a relationship and stuff, how helpful is that?
right.
Even though they're marked as an ally, are they an ally?
Right. Or they really don't understand the community. And there's so much of that. I mean, it's interesting. I was, just away recently and had a conversation. We were out to dinner with a bunch of friends, and, just talking about doctors and our doctors, and the difference in having a doctor that is well versed with the LGBT community, or having a gay doctor versus, a doctor where you don't talk about, sex or your sex life, and how that plays out. And, I've been in on both sides of that. And I remember, initially going to doctors and feeling very uncomfortable, like, they're uncomfortable about it, so I'm uncomfortable about it. And it's just like, you don't talk about it, but these are things that are critical and are so important in our community. And, it's, these are health issues. And it's like you said, it's not just flying a flag, it's knowing the community and understanding, how to service an entire community.
Yeah. And to your point with doctors, I mean, that's uncomfortable and such, but you can live with that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's examples where people go to, and I'm not going to mention names or places, but this is someone who I hope to interview later on, told me a story that happened just a few years, went to a facility, wasn't feeling well mentally, and was in transition. And because they couldn't find a place where they felt the person could be, they didn't know if it was a man, to put them in the man section or a woman's, it ends up they put this person, they excluded this person, right? And that's a common theme in medical healthcare providers, is
Mm-hmm.
when you get someone and in an emergency situation, they're like, well, I don't know where to put them, so we'll just keep them here. When instead they should just be acting on that person's needs.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else, it's like, okay, let's get to the actual, it's an emergency, let's get to this. But they're wasting time thinking about where do we put this person, which is costing people's health. And afterwards, that person is not going to go back to services.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up suffering,
Mm-hmm.
serious conditions because of that. They're not getting their checkups, they're not going to this. So it's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
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 So just we're going to finish. So I don't want to keep you all day, and and I would love to talk about this all day. So I'm assuming you're a pro LGBT center.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just God, that would be such a great resource. I mean, just talking about health, talking about, I mean, just from my personal perspective of, and the work, having been involved with the film festival when you were at the YW, but, we cover so many LGBTQ issues, and to have, a community center that could be a place where we could host events, that we could partner with, that we could, that could help to promote things where, if you want to have an LGBTQ dance or fundraiser or something, there's a space where you can go, that's just designated for your community. And that is so great. And it's like you said, Bergen County is one of the most wealthiest counties in the country. And the fact that there is right now so little in this county for our community. I mean, and there's a big gay community, and you've had a thriving gay club that's, still open 40 plus years, right in the center of the county. I mean, there's certainly a need for it, and the need in the sense that there is a quickly growing community of families and individuals and children that are here.
It's evolving.
It's evolving, and it quickly.
And to your point of having a safe space is, in the best case scenario is your version, but unfortunately, most of us that are LGBT have felt threatened because of your very existence, felt unsafe going to a place. And a lot of us have felt that way within our own families. And the truth is, lots of children face physical and mental abuse from their family. So having a space to go to and just saying, I don't have to worry about being attacked. I just need a place to get resources, or just to step away, is hugely important.
Yeah, I could provide you with examples of such just from living here. First of all, I grew up in one county north of here in Rockland County. Okay, so very similar demographic to Bergen County. I was fortunate to be accepted by my family, and never had issues where I was disowned or anything of that nature. But I didn't come out to college, and high school was a very unsafe space for me. And I never felt in high school that, coming out was even an option for me back in the 90s. And high school wasn't a place at that time where there really were a lot of avenues for me to go. And I think that if there was a place like a center, I'd probably be inclined to want to at least utilize it or go there to talk to someone. Because for me, my outlet again was New York City. So even in high school, when I knew I was gay, I was sneaking into the city. I was volunteering for housing works or doing stuff at Bastille Day back in the day. And that's kind of how I knew or got introduced to my community. And I just remember feeling like this is where I belong. These are my people. So for kids that again, don't have access to that, even though it's not far, it's another reason. And I could tell you, as a community leader in this town and in the county, there have been, when we tried to get that flag raised in Teaneck, there were members of the religious community that, put out public statements that were, just horrifying, vilifying the LGBT community. And there were children in that community that, wrote letters on social media about, being gay in a community, in a religious community that didn't accept them, and what the significance of a flag would mean, and how, this is something that, something as simple as a rainbow flag, yes, it can save lives. A symbol, can let someone know that there are other people here like you, and there is a community. So even if you're not accepted at home by your family or by your religious community, there are other avenues for you to engage in safe spaces and, build that in yourself. I mean, also, when I moved on to my block, I received an anonymous handwritten note in my mailbox from a youngster that lived a few houses down that said he was struggling with his sexuality and coming out, and his parents were religious, and he just wrote a letter how much it meant to me because he knew that his parents spoke so highly of me and my partner. And he knew that it was reassuring for him to know that ultimately his parents, he felt would be accepting of him and just what that meant. And here I am living my life having, really no idea about any of this.
Yeah.
And these are just things that have come up just by being here, and simple things. And I think, when you realize how much work there is to be done when you have to fight to get a flag raised in a town, to commemorate Stonewall and commemorate Pride, and recognize the inclusiveness of who we are as a people, and people understanding that rainbow flag encompasses all. And that's just like one little thing. But when you really want to like get down to the nitty gritty of all the services and resources and all the things that plague our community, and that, I mean, apart from saving lives and the health aspect and all of that, I mean, there's just so many things that would be great about having a county-wide center.
Yeah. And before we end really quick, I just wanted to, you just brought some really interesting things. Is people don't realize just how much visibility counts, because the message, within our lives, we've had the message that we are an aberration, that we are mentally unwell, and we've been reduced to just like a sexual deviant across the board, and that's all we've been viewed as people. So you have religious leaders still talking out against us. We still have agencies that will not support us. We still have all these issues still going on, but they're not thinking about the young adults that are growing up, and this is the only information they get. So what is the chance, if you have a small population and they don't have any positive information coming on them, what are the chances that they're going to grow up and be healthy and not suffer from that? So just having a flag or a place or representation where, hey, I could be in a relationship and and happy, and I'm not, my life is not going to be in the gutters and addiction and deviancy, that means a lot. And it's just not here. So thank you for being visible. For,
Yeah,
you
and
know
there's no other way to be. I mean, it's just, it's like anything else. I mean, people just have to, once people, and it's all about, I think, getting people out there so that we can cross pollinate, and people understand that our needs are not very different from any other needs, but we are a unique community, and there are things that are specific to us that we need to really have.
Yeah. And what is that statement? All needs have to be met for equality. I can't remember what it is, but it's so true, because when I talk to a lot of people, and it's, people from my own community, people of color, the response is, what's more important is racism right now. And I was like, what, you forget. And I sit on several boards, and I'm like, people of color are being thrown away from people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And that's across the board, whether it's Muslim, Hindu, Black, Hispanic, Jewish, those communities throw away LGBT people.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so they're still suffering from all the racism, but on top of that, they're suffering from homophobia. And on top of that, there is no safe space.
Right.
So,
and you see it throughout. And and the irony is, it's like all the intersectionality within, our communities. And that's the irony.
yeah.
One would think that, a community that has been marginalized would necessarily be accepting of another community. And sadly, it's, for many, it's not the case. For some it is. And, you can't paint with a broad brush, but yeah, we see it all over. So, and even within the gay community, right?
Oh.
I mean, please, We could have that conversation.
Oh, yeah. And I plan to have that conversation. I plan to talk to anyone and everyone and hear what they say and not censor what they're saying. I don't know how this is going to pan out, but I hope to make this visible and allow people just to hear these conversations
Yeah.
and to ultimately get that, you know, it's important that we have a center.
Yeah, no, it would be great. So, whatever I can do to help, and if there are initiatives that, we can do on behalf of TIFF, I think it's great. We're here for it.
Well, I mean, at this point, I just want to say thank you. I'm going to stop the recording and let me just see how I do that.